Hello, lovely people, and welcome to this late night edition of Astro Chats with Haley. You know when life is just really busy and we gotta fit it in. So now is my time to be present with you, and we're gonna take a really high level kind of bird's eye perspective on 2026. So the kind of like broad strokes, specifically looking at the ingresses of the outer planets, in addition to just kind of some of the main kind of signatures energetically that I see for this year. So let's head in. So the first image that I want to bring to you, and it was reminded to me when I went back and I checked in on this video that I had made a few months ago on the ingress of the planet Neptune into the sign of Aries. And let me just back up a little bit further. So further, we can think about this year, 2025, kind of closing it out, numerologically a year 9, connected to the wood serpent, moving into 2026, numerologically a year 1, connected to the fire horse in the Chinese zodiac, beginning on February 17th. That's when that new energy is really markedly coming in. And there's also a big theme in terms of all of the outer planets making ingresses into either air as well as fire signs, and out of the kind of yin, earth and water signs. So like, let me pull up this like mad scientist sheet right here. So for example, the planet Uranus has been in Taurus for a while, and it's gonna move into Gemini. The exact date is July 7th of 2026. Of course, we've had Pluto in Aquarius for a little bit now, where it's gonna be until 2043, kind of creating these widespread revolutions of ideology, collectivity, and the need to kind of bring in this kind of the term ancient future to resurrect kind of old bones of consciousness in order to innovate and to create something utterly new. It's a bit of a paradox with that placement. Saturn moving out of that kind of where it's been stationed at that kind of anaretic last degree of the sign of the mutable water sign of Pisces, where it will be moving into Aries on, let's see, February 13th. So there's a lot in February for like that Saturn ingress, as well as the beginning of the Chinese New Year, as well as the movement of Venus, her return basically to the visible sky as the evening star after being invisible since November of this year, 2025, when I'm filming this. We also have Neptune, of course, also leaving the sign of Pisces and entering Aries. That's on January 26th, where it will be until 2039. So a big stretch of time. And then also Jupiter, the greater benefic, moving out of Cancer into the fixed fire sign of Leo on June 29th. So all of these planets moving out of yin signs that tend to move more slowly and kind of dredge up subconscious material. They have a lot to say about our relational programming, the deep kind of unconscious, particularly with Uranus in Taurus, and then all of them moving into yang signs, which is very fast moving energy that kind of has a lot to do with catalyzing us into new states of consciousness, kind of whether we're ready for it or not, kind of making quantum leaps, having those renaissances occur where just like we look in history and there's just kind of like a trajectory, then there's a blip and we don't really know why, or we can't fully explain why logically, why then, why not, why at that speed or that velocity or that extent that leap was ready to be made. But with this big leap into fire and air, it's kind of like all this latent potential exploding. Okay, so that's kind of like broad strokes of what's going on. And there's a particular theme around horses for 2026, and hear me out. So in addition to the Chinese zodiac being ruled by the element of fire and the animal of the horse, so the fire horse, which when we think about that, we think about like, at least me, I think about like flashes, heat, momentum, breakthroughs, wake-up calls, incredible speed, incredible strength. And I also think about a very subtle level of strength and the importance of what is the right word, of knowing when to hold back. That's big. Because with the fire element as kind of this primordial quality of alchemy and its capacity to either incinerate or burn, in the sense of like burning itself out, holding more energy than it knows how to sustain. And then likewise, kind of this like kind of the ability to hold fire necessitates some kind of technology or architecture that is able to hold it. So when we're thinking about moving through an entire year in an archetype of fire, I think about with restraint, artful, playing the long game, and allowing that kind of intense, pointed, directed energy of transformation to be very consciously worked with and directed, rather than kind of turning into some kind of like impulsive or unconscious manifestation of that heat energy, which just can show up as irritation, or feeling like we're using a lot of our energy and running really, really, really far. But we're running really, really fast and for really, really long, but we're not getting very far. It's kind of like that treadmill feeling I think about. So this horse thing is big, and hear me out. Also, so I looked at the Sabian symbol for the degree that Venus will be at on, let me pull up my Mad Scientist document here, on February 16th, which is a huge day, because on this day, and this is, I even forgot to mention this. So on the day that the Chinese zodiac starts, February 17th, is the exact day that we will be having a solar eclipse and a new moon in the sign of Aquarius, which feels like a big kind of spark plug for all of that kind of Uranian, Plutonian conversation that's going down this year. And so the day before that, prior to the beginning of the Fire Horse year, I love how you can just see my head up, it's so crazy. But prior to the Fire Horse year and that solar eclipse in Aquarius, oh, there you go. There you go. Prior to that day, on February 16th, the 16th, Venus is going to return to the visible sky as the evening star, and the Sabian symbol, get this, that she's gonna be at is called "The race begins. Intent on outdistancing his rivals, a jockey spurs his horse to great speed." Are you joking? So this horse thing is big, and just like the metaphor of the horse race, and I feel like, I don't know, I've never been to a horse race, so I don't have much knowledge on this topic, but I feel like a lot of the stories that I know about them are kind of like that underdog story, where there's always like that horse that's like no one bet on except for this one guy who was like, I bet this horse is gonna win her, and is like, no, Phil, you're crazy. And the theme around the one who is kind of unexpected, which brings in this energy of kind of curveballs or things that we couldn't anticipate, kind of those wild cards. I think about the one, and I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure in the major arcana, the first major arcana card is the Magician. So this ability to fully like manifest miracles, and then likewise deal with unforeseen kind of elements that we hadn't predicted, but that kind of throw a wrench in the plan, and that are always kind of like in the periphery, but then they come more to the forefront, kind of like that horse that just like at the last minute kind of pulls ahead really, really fast. So this theme of the horse, and I really, really want to talk about this kind of main focus that I really want to leave us with is the magnitude of the impact of this major conjunction of Saturn and Neptune at 0 degrees of Aries, which, let me check the exact date of that because this is really, really big. February 20th. Again, this month of February is just popping. It's popping. This 0 degree of Aries is a point of imminent creation, and likewise destruction. It's kind of the energy of like all of the apoptosis, or like the cellular debris that happens in the last degrees of Pisces as we come through and we continue to go on these kind of like metamorphosis journey. all of that kind of debris has to be swept away before the new kind of cellular life or evolutionary order can land. And so this 0 degrees of Aries point, some of the keywords that I wrote down on my mad scientist list here are simultaneous destruction and dissolving, as well as birth. And also I got the image of cannibalism. So the need to kind of metabolize something kind of like the image of eating the twin. I feel like that happens in myths all the time, which in this case might be eating the shadow, like getting very intimate with what it like the internal shadow material that wants to be metabolized in order to fully step into something fully new. Additionally, baptisms by fire, and also the image of rivers of fire, quantum leaps, rapid initiation, and also the need of kind of things, and this is all kind of this complicated story of, yes, it's the natal chart, and it's the cosmic clock, and it's our participation in it. And so it's kind of like that energy of we say yes to something, and we might have never said yes to it had we known the full magnitude of its scope or what it would impact, that kind of butterfly effect phenomenon. But that's like the important part, is that we don't know it, because if we knew all that, we wouldn't say yes. That's the kind of thing around like that, the innocent power of the yes this year. Feelings of inspired action, and the feeling that the time is now, kind of this ripened feeling, the feeling that something is ripe, rising to the occasion, being moved to act, perhaps on dreams that have been gestating for some time. And likewise, the need to fully let go or retire dreams that may be culminated without ever having been manifest, but that are somehow ready to be surrendered. This theme of like off to the races again with this whole horse theme, the lit match, the kind of gun going off or the pop of smoke, increases in faith-based violence with Neptune in Aries. This is a big thing around Aries, is often the sign of like the warrior. And then when Neptune is here, is kind of like a mystic. Sometimes it can be on one side of the coin or one side of the sword, kind of like the mystic, the revolutionary mystic of love, who's kind of this warrior upholding transcendental humanitarian values. And it can also go in the direction of increased faith-based conflicts. And so the need in this conversation between Neptune and Saturn and Aries, and then Pluto and Aquarius, and again, I talked about this in the Neptune ingress into Aries video if you want to check that out, but the need to allow for greater multiplicity and to unlearn the idea that through conformity we create peace. Like in the new order, the only way in order to coexist is to truly believe that we don't have to believe all the same thing, that there could be room for lots of different takes on reality, basically. So energies to work with. The Roman horse goddess Epona, she may actually have been a Celtic goddess that was mainly worshipped in the Roman kind of empire. I'd have to double check on that. But this kind of fierce energy of the horse goddesses, which believe it or not is like it's a thing. So that could be fun to look into. Addition, there's the Welsh goddess Rhiannon. And also I felt very strongly the energy of Michael as this kind of like central pillar or sword of truth, of integrity, of protection. That protection lies in sovereignty that we see when Jupiter enters Leo, this kind of very auspicious sign of, it has a very royal signature, it has a very whole unto oneself signature. And so the more that we can kind of continue to take out the debris and the old personas that may have been stirred or brought to some kind of culmination in 2025, taking them and then likewise bringing something new into the equation, that really ultimately leads us closer to our center and closer to the divine light of our souls. Okay, there is a theme too, as we see Neptune moving over that threshold point from 29 Pisces to 0 Aries of literally the image of burning off fog. A lot of times Neptune and Pisces can literally be kind of like that archetype of like is it like Hymn of the Ancient Mariner, just like Lost at Sea, that book, I feel like it's Ernest Hemingway, The Old Man and the Sea, just like on, like sea songs. You're in a boat in the mist and you're going in a circle but you don't know where you are. Like it can be very very unmooring, very kind of which can feel inspiring in terms of spiritual or artistic inclinations, to feel that unmoored, but it can also feel unsettling. And often as Neptune enters Aries, and it might happen really quick, a lot of times that shows up as like a wake-up call or moments of revelation. Like I think about like the Judgment card in the tarot, where there's like a summoning happening, where it's like we are able to get really real. Interesting, rear. So like seeing something in the rear view window that in the past may have been kind of cloaked, or we were too close to it so we were unable to see it properly. There's a power for a lot of this movement of the outer planets into air and fire signs to gain a lot of clarity, in that image of kind of the fog burning off, which sometimes shows up as disillusionment, and temporarily sometimes leads even to more like increases temporarily in nihilism, or feeling like I don't believe in anything, prior to kind of a reordering or restructuring around something that does feel real and salient. The last image that I want to leave us with, that was kind of my reminder to like sit my ass down here and chat, was this image that I keep feeling very, very strongly. And I started feeling it this summer as I was kind of feeling into, again, mainly Neptune entering Aries. It entered for a little bit and then kind of retrograded back into Pisces. So we've kind of gotten little tastes of a lot of these things, primarily kind of in the late spring, summer months of this year, 2025. And that is the image of the old man in The Wizard of Oz, who's cloaked in a curtain with all of the optics and the booming voice, and how when we peel back the curtain, something that had seemed really kind of ominous and imposing and convoluted and omniscient even, when we kind of gain that access point to look at it for what it really is, there's kind of a way that the power that voice used to have loses its kind of chokehold over us. And the way that I connect it to the energetics of 2026 is through gaining greater immediacy, imminence, feeling more strongly in contact with reality, with the strength and the courage to enter into long-standing, brewing, culminating change, that kind of leap that has been asking of us, by being brave enough to follow the inevitable stream. Things become simpler and they become less terrifying. And that's a kind of a bold statement to make. And what I feel like that is typically the fear will kind of culminate and get louder right as it's about to be dispelled. And that's kind of the feeling that I get around this year, as it's simultaneously culminating, dispelling, and creating the opening into perhaps the next decade, the next century. So I hope this served in some capacity, maybe sparked some thoughts, some meaningful reflections, sending much love, and so excited to navigate this year together.